Chairman. Good morning. I'm bringing you again for the second time House Bill 202. This bill is real simple. It asks the department to do something they have already recognized to me in conversations with me is a good idea. They already have much more specific data on individuals that are criminally in this country and then commit crimes on Georgians, then are adjudicated and then placed in our correctional facilities. All of that data and the specifics is already on the website. What I'm asking them to do to make it transparent for the people is to aggregate a list like the one I placed on your desk yesterday, so that you have an aggregated list, not of individuals, but of crimes committed and how many there are. And so they believe this is a good idea. They've actually already agreed to go ahead and add this to their website. What I'm trying to do is to make sure we have it in statute so that that transparency will be there going forward from today forward and into the future. That's very simply what House Bill 202 does, Mr. Chairman. And any questions, I'm glad to answer them.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Why do we need this?
Sir?
Why do we need this?
Well, so that's a very good question. I hope I'll give you a good answer. So we have, unfortunately, in Congress, whose duty it is to deal with the issue of illegal immigration, the inability by both parties in Congress to do anything to deal with this problem. So in Georgia, in this body, all of us that are legislators are very limited to what we can do. But what we can do is make sure that the people that we represent recognize the degree to which the issue impacts their lives daily. And so when you look at that list that I'm asking to be aggregated, there's 1,505 today violent and sex offenders in Georgia correctional facilities who murdered, raped, killed, kidnapped, child molested Georgia citizens on that list. And so the people can look at that list and have complete transparency, and they can look at that and say, that's a big deal, or they may say that's not a big deal. But right now, that data is not available to them. That list that I presented on your desk is something we can get as legislators, but is not available to the average citizen. And that's where the whole conversation began with the commissioner 2 years ago. I asked for a list so I would understand the degree this issue was impacting society. I could get it, but the average citizen couldn't get it. And all I want is for that data to be transparent and posted on the website, and then people can make up their own minds about how they need to deal with Congress, who are the only folks that can really deal with this issue. But 1,505 inmates is a lot of money on our budget, and it's a lot of human tragedy in 1,505 violent and sexual crimes. That's the best answer I can give you, Mr. Chairman.
Leader Trim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the gentleman, I looked at what was on the desk yesterday.
That's correct.
And is that what you're proposing, to ask them to publish what you put on the desk yesterday?
Pretty much. The department will, yes, it is a list of ICE detainers in Georgia correctional facilities. That is correct.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might ask one other question. Well, if we're going to do that, why don't we just aggregate all the data and publish it in so that we can see what a percentage is, rather than single out individuals in an effort to inflame public opinion against a group based on their citizenship or non-citizenship status?
Well, I want to answer that question. First, if you'll look on line 15, you will notice it says, with regard to the total population in confinement. So I have asked them to do that, and as I stated in the subcommittee, this is 3% of our inmates. I made it clear in my first sentence to the subcommittee that this issue, this population, was a small subset of our inmate population. That is absolutely true, and that is why I have language that asks for what you're speaking to. Having said that, I want to make sure you understand this. Those 1,505 crimes that you saw on that list, I don't have it in front of me now, none of those had to happen. We can't do anything about our own native-born or U.S. citizen violent criminals except incarcerate them. But those 1,505, if the federal government was doing their job, would never have happened. But the answer to your question is right there on line 15 and 16, sir.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and gentlemen. Well, I understand your passion for what you're doing. I live in an area, is it not true, that joins an agricultural area, onions, where we have a whole lot of inmates, a whole lot of folk coming in to work. I know the sheriffs from all the surrounding counties, and this is to the chairman's question. I have never had a sheriff to tell me it's a problem that they don't have this information. And I know them, and we talk, and I see them, and I'm still, the question cries out for why do we need this legislation?
Okay. Well, Representative, I can't speak to the sheriffs, although I will tell you that we passed House Bill 452 2 years ago, which made sure that this information is sent to our sheriffs when individuals are released after being held in Georgia correctional facilities, so they are actually already getting this information. This is about transparency to the people who may or may not, you may not be interested. The question is, do you believe that the people of Georgia have a right to see this aggregated data? It's really that simple, sir.
Representative Bodie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Representative, do you realize by publishing this on a website that this could inflame inmates and possibly cause race riots inside of our Georgia penal institutions?
Sir, with all due respect, that's the most absurd question I've ever heard.
No, it's
This list. Have you looked at the list? This list does not include any
What you just said was
individual's
very
name.
disrespectful.
Whoa, stop.
Yes.
Both of you.
Yes.
Let him answer the question. We're not going to argue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Here's the list. It is nothing more than a list of the number and the offenses of ICE detainers in Georgia prisons. How could that inflame anyone?
Because you are singing.
No, stop.
Yes.
We're not gonna argue.
Yes.
We're going to have questions and answers.
So, Mr. Representative, do you not feel like this list that you are aggravating is singling out a certain class of people?
Representative, I do not, because if you had taken the time to look at the list.
And I did.
Say again?
I did.
I'm glad to hear that. What you will discover is the only singular thing you can find in this population is that they're here illegally. They're from you wouldn't believe the number of Germans my name happens to be German. You'd be amazed at the number of Germans, some of which committed violent crimes in Chatham County, where I live, are on this list. The only thing singular about this list is that these are individuals that were here illegally, which is another matter. This bill is not about immigration, which is what the other side continues to try to do. This bill is about public safety. These individuals are here illegally and then subsequently commit a violent crime on Georgia citizens. That is the only thing that is singular about them, sir.
I yield.
All right, we're going to wrap this up. One more question, Mr. Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman PG, I just have a series of questions, if you'll yield for just a few, if that's okay.
Please.
Wouldn't you agree, and I think in most of us would, that any time that we can make our system of government and the functions of state government more transparent to the citizens of Georgia, that should be viewed as a good thing and a nonpartisan thing?
I would have always believed that to be true, that people would want transparency in public safety. Yes, sir.
And isn't it true that this measure is not aimed at just the number of illegals that may be in Georgia, but we are talking about people who are here illegally who have also committed some of the most heinous crimes that could be committed on Georgia soil against Georgia citizens?
Mr. Whip, that is accurately the case. My issue is not immigration. I actually am as a large employer, I am an advocate for a vigorous immigration system. I wish Congress would do the job and get it right so we could continue to have people that my good friend Al Williams speaks about, but my part of the world as well, and that we would continue to have the ability to bring people here legally. But when people come here, and because we have a failed system and we haven't done the right job to vet people and they commit violent crimes, the question is, do people have a right to know about it? I think they do. And indeed, the specifics on these individuals are already on the website. All I'm doing is asking to aggregate the data.
And one final question, because I think this is important. Nowhere in this bill, isn't it true, that any of this data would be divided up by anyone's racial status?
Absolutely not. Or any other factor other than the fact that they were here illegally and committed a violent
No
or sexual
demographic
crime.
outside of two things. They're here illegally, you've committed a crime, and you have never interjected race into this conversation, and that was done by the minority party this morning.
That is correct, which
Thank
is
you.
customary, sir.
All right, having heard your third final question, we're going to move on to members'